They say miracles arrive when you least expect them, but Samuel Whitmore, with all his fortune and influence, had stopped believing in miracles long ago. All he wanted was one impossible thing: to see his young son walk again. Yet on a quiet afternoon, in the garden behind his grand estate, Samuel would stumble upon a sight so pure, so heart-wrenchingly beautiful, that it would shatter everything he thought he knew about hope, about healing, and about love. Welcome to Storytelling and Beyond, where every story reminds us that the heart's greatest treasures are often found in the most unexpected places. If you believe in kindness, resilience, and the quiet strength of the human spirit, don't forget to subscribe and be a part of our growing family. The sun draped a gentle golden hue over the expansive gardens as Samuel pulled into his driveway earlier than expected. He had cut his trip short, driven by a restlessness he couldn't quite explain. His estate was a vision of perfection. Trimmed hedges, marble fountains, a sprawling playground designed especially for Adam. Yet it all felt hollow, a gleaming palace surrounding a deeply wounded heart. As he stepped out of his car, briefcase in hand, a soft, almost musical giggle floated through the air. It wasn't the laughter of the house staff or a neighbor, it was lighter, freer, filled with a kind of reckless joy Samuel hadn't heard in years. Instinctively, he followed the sound, his expensive shoes silent against the manicured lawn. There, near the old oak tree, was Adam's wheelchair, standing alone. For one gut-wrenching moment, Samuel panicked. Where was his son? Was he hurt? But then he saw them, just beyond the tree. Adam was standing. Wobbly, trembling, but standing, with the aid of a little girl no older than 10. She was barefoot, her feet dirty and scratched. Her clothes were little more than thin rags patched together, and her dark hair was tangled in knots. She held Adam's hands tightly, her face a radiant mixture of determination and sheer joy as she whispered to him. "You're doing it, Adam. Just one more step. You're so strong." Adam, his cheeks flushed with excitement and strain, took a tiny, trembling step forward. He collapsed into her arms laughing, and she caught him, toppling back into the grass with him in a heap of delighted giggles. Samuel stood rooted behind a tree, overwhelmed by 1,000 emotions he couldn't name. He had paid the best therapists, imported the latest equipment, flown specialists from around the world, yet this barefoot child was achieving something no one else had. His chest tightened painfully as he watched his son, laughing like he hadn't in years, a light in his eyes Samuel thought he'd lost forever. He stepped forward, unable to remain hidden any longer. The girl spotted him first and immediately sprang to her feet, pulling Adam up with her. Fear flickered across her face. She probably thought she was in trouble. Samuel approached slowly, his voice softer than he remembered it ever being. "What's your name, sweetheart?" The girl bit her lip, glancing between Samuel and Adam. "Lily, sir," she whispered. "And, how do you know my son?" His voice cracked slightly on the word son. "I don't, sir," she said, dropping her gaze. "I was just passing through. I saw him trying to reach his ball, so I helped. I didn't mean no harm, sir. Please don't be mad." "Mad?" Samuel's heart shattered into 1,000 pieces at the idea. This child, clearly neglected by the world, had given his son something priceless, and she was afraid of being punished for it. Adam, clinging to her hand, beamed up at his father. "Dad! Lily's amazing. She says I can walk again if I just believe it and try." Samuel knelt before both of them, ignoring the dirt that would surely stain his designer suit. Looking into Lily's eyes, so full of fear, yet so full of hope. He asked gently, "Where's your family, Lily?" She hesitated. "Ain't got none, sir. I sleep down by the river. It's not so bad." A lump rose in Samuel's throat so thick he could hardly breathe. He could see now up close the signs of long-term hunger in her frail frame, the bruises on her arms, the weariness in her two-old eyes. A little girl who had nothing, and yet gave everything she could to a boy she didn't even know. Tears burned his eyes, but he blinked them back fiercely. Adam squeezed his hand. "Can she stay, Dad? Please?" Samuel pulled both children into his arms, overcome with emotion. "Yes, son," he whispered, his voice breaking. "Yes, she can stay. And somewhere deep inside, for the first time in years, Samuel dared to believe that maybe, just maybe, miracles were real. They just didn't always look the way you expected them to. Samuel sat with Lily at the long oak dining table, a place that had once felt too vast, too empty, with only him and Adam occupying it. Now, as Lily picked at her meal nervously, the house felt somehow fuller, warmer, alive in a way Samuel hadn't realized he had been missing. Adam chatted animatedly beside her, filling her in on everything from his favorite cartoons to his dreams of playing soccer someday. Lily listened intently, a small smile pulling at the corners of her lips as she encouraged him with nods and wide-eyed amazement, as if every word Adam spoke was a precious treasure. Samuel watched her closely. Despite the new dress his housekeeper had hurriedly found for her, Lily still looked painfully thin. Her cheeks were hollow, her hands delicate and calloused, a living testament to hardship beyond her years. He couldn't fathom how someone so young had survived so much and still had the capacity to lift another soul up with such kindness. After dinner, as the golden light of evening poured through the windows, Samuel asked her to walk with him through the garden. Adam had dozed off, finally exhausted after a full day that, thanks to Lily, was brimming with hope and laughter. They strolled slowly along the garden paths. Lily's small hands were stuffed into the oversized pockets of her borrowed dress, and she kept glancing at Samuel from the corner of her eye, wary but curious. "You said you stay by the river," Samuel began gently. "Alone?" She nodded. "I'm used to it. How long has it been like that for you?" Lily shrugged. "A while. Since before last Christmas, I think. Maybe longer." Samuel's heart twisted. No child should have to measure time by Christmases spent alone and hungry. "Didn't anyone try to help you? The police? A shelter?" "I ran from the shelters," she admitted, looking down. "They're scary sometimes. People ain't nice there. Out here, I can take care of myself." Her words, so brave yet so devastating, hit Samuel harder than he anticipated. He cleared his throat, trying to steady his emotions. "You don't have to take care of yourself anymore, Lily," he said quietly. "Not alone." She looked up at him, her big brown eyes searching his face for any hint of false promises. Samuel knelt down in front of her, making sure they were eye to eye. "You helped my son when no one else could," he said, his voice thick. "You showed him he could stand, Lily. You gave him hope. I will never forget that. And I will not let you go back to that river." Lily's lower lip trembled. She bit it quickly, stubbornly holding back tears. "You'll live here with us. You'll go to school. You'll have your own room, your own bed, your own books, whatever you need." "But I ain't nobody, sir," she whispered. "Why would you?" Samuel smiled gently, placing his hand over hers. "You're not nobody, Lily. You're the angel who reminded me what love looks like. And family is made by love, not blood." A long silence fell between them, broken only by the distant chirp of crickets. Then, slowly, Lily stepped forward and wrapped her arms tightly around Samuel's neck. For a moment, she clung to him fiercely, like a shipwreck survivor grabbing a lifeline. Samuel closed his eyes, hugging her back, feeling the tremors of her sobs shake her small body. A deep peace settled over him, something he hadn't felt since the day Adam was born. In that simple embrace, under the growing twilight, an unspoken promise passed between them, that no matter what life had stolen from Lily, from Samuel, and from Adam, they would now walk forward together. A family, bound not by circumstance, but by an unbreakable, chosen love. The next morning, as the sun bathed the estate in soft, golden light, the sound of laughter echoed through the mansion's walls, a stark contrast to the quiet emptiness that had defined the home for so long. Adam, full of energy and excitement, was in the garden with Lily, running around with a soccer ball, while Samuel watched from the large living room window, feeling an unfamiliar warmth spread through him. It wasn't just Adam who seemed to have found something new, it was the house, the very air inside the mansion. The floors, the walls, the rooms all seemed to breathe in harmony, as if they were awakening from a deep slumber. The house had been grand, luxurious even, but it had always felt cold, distant. Now, with Lily and Adam's laughter filling the spaces, it was as though the mansion had been brought to life.
Samuel couldn't help but smile as he observed them.
Adam, with his bright eyes and endless curiosity, was teaching Lily how to kick the ball with precision. Though she was still unsure and shy, she had a spark of determination in her eyes. She was trying, and that was enough. The phone rang, and Samuel reluctantly tore his gaze away from the scene outside. It was a call from his company, one that required his immediate attention. He sighed, running a hand through his hair, wondering if this was going to be another day of endless meetings and cold decisions. Still, he knew he couldn't let this time with his new family slip away. He hurriedly answered the phone, walking into his study as the call went on. His mind raced through various scenarios, trying to balance the needs of his business with the needs of the two children in his life now. But as he sat down, his eyes kept drifting back to the window, to the peaceful garden where his son and the girl from the streets were forming a bond that Samuel could only dream of having when he was younger. He couldn't help but be amazed by Lily's resilience. She wasn't just teaching Adam how to walk, she was showing him how to live, how to rise above the hardships that had held her down for so long. That was something Samuel had never fully understood until now. It was a lesson that Adam was getting, and one Samuel himself was beginning to grasp more deeply every day. Hours passed, and when Samuel finally hung up the phone and returned to the garden, he found Lily sitting quietly on a bench under the large oak tree, her head slightly bent as she traced patterns in the dirt with a stick. Adam, for once, was calm, sitting by her side, his head resting on her shoulder. They looked like two old friends, sharing a moment of peace that transcended everything else. "Hey," Samuel called softly as he approached them, his steps slow, careful not to disturb the scene in front of him. Adam looked up first, grinning wide when he saw his father. Lily, however, remained still for a moment before slowly lifting her gaze to meet his. "You guys having fun?" Samuel asked, crouching down to be at eye level with them. Lily smiled shyly but nodded. "Yeah. Adam's been teaching me soccer," she said, her voice still soft, but more confident than it had been yesterday. "He's good at it." "Yeah, he is," Samuel agreed with a chuckle. He looked down at the soccer ball near their feet and then back to Lily. "I think you're getting the hang of it, too." Lily's smile grew, but there was something deeper in her eyes, a light that hadn't been there when Samuel first met her. She wasn't just learning how to play, she was learning how to belong, how to trust that things might be different now. Samuel wanted to tell her that things would be different. He wanted to promise her that her days of fighting alone were over, but somehow, he felt like the promise was already in the air between them, unspoken but understood. Adam jumped up suddenly, grabbing the ball and bouncing it on his knee. "Dad, I want to show Lily how to kick it really high. Watch this." Samuel nodded, his heart swelling with pride as he watched his son take the ball and pass it gently to Lily, who kicked it with far more grace than she had the day before. The ball soared through the air, and both Adam and Lily cheered in unison. Samuel's eyes glistened as he watched them. It was simple, these moments. But in their simplicity, they held the world. Samuel knew, in that instant, that he would do whatever it took to make sure this new family, these two souls who had already become so important to him, would never have to suffer again. Lily had come from nothing, but Samuel was determined that she would leave his house with everything she deserved: love, protection, and the chance at a future that was full of promise. He didn't know exactly how, but he was certain that together, they would find a way to build a new life, one where there was nothing left to fear. As the days passed, Samuel couldn't help but feel an overwhelming sense of gratitude and awe whenever he looked at Lily and Adam. It was the kind of gratitude that settled deep in your chest, a feeling that this family he had been building, a family with its own history, its own future, was something truly special. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm orange glow across the mansion, Samuel stood in the doorway, watching Lily and Adam sitting on the porch, their faces bathed in the soft light. Adam was reading a book aloud, his voice filled with excitement as he stumbled over some of the longer words, but Lily was patient, offering quiet corrections when needed, always encouraging him to keep going. Samuel stood there, silently admiring the scene, a bittersweet smile forming on his face. He hadn't realized it before, but in such a short time, Lily had become a cornerstone of their lives. Adam was different now. More thoughtful, more aware of the world around him. And Lily, despite her rough past, had become the glue that held everything together.
Samuel never imagined how such an unexpected person could bring so much light into his life.
He had been hesitant at first, unsure of how to introduce such a monumental change into his world. But with every passing day, his doubts faded. The house, which had once been nothing more than an empty shell of wealth and grandeur, now felt alive.
It was a home. His home.
As Samuel stepped outside, he caught Adam's attention.
"Hey, buddy," he called softly, walking over to where they sat.
Adam closed the book and looked up, his face lighting up in a smile.
"Hey, Dad," Adam said enthusiastically.
He patted the empty spot beside him, inviting Samuel to join them. Samuel sat down beside them, his heart swelling as he looked at Lily.
"Thank you," he said quietly, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you for everything."
Lily looked at him, confusion flickering across her face.
"For what?"
"For everything you've done for Adam," Samuel said, his voice soft yet sincere.
"You've given him something I couldn't.
You've taught him so much in such a short time." Lily's cheeks turned pink, and she looked away, unsure how to respond. But Adam, ever the outspoken one, grinned widely. "It's all thanks to Lily," he said proudly. "She's teaching me everything: soccer, reading, even how to be kind." Lily laughed, a soft, almost shy sound, and playfully nudged Adam. "You're learning a lot, kid," she said, her voice warm and full of affection.
Samuel leaned back in his chair, taking a deep breath.
There was something about this moment that felt different. It felt like they were finally coming together as a family, not just by name, but in spirit. The foundation of their new life was solid, built on understanding, patience, and love. They were creating something unique, something none of them had before. Adam, who had been quiet for a moment, suddenly stood up, looking at Samuel with wide eyes.
"Dad, I was thinking, maybe we could all go on a trip soon. Like a family trip."
Samuel smiled at his son's enthusiasm.
"That sounds like a great idea, Adam. We'll make it happen."
Lily nodded, her smile radiant.
"That sounds fun."
The three of them sat there for a while longer, simply enjoying the serenity of the evening. The breeze rustled the leaves of the nearby trees, and the sun's final rays painted the sky in vibrant hues of purple and gold.
For the first time in years, Samuel felt at peace.
Not because everything was perfect, but because for the first time in his life, he felt that he was exactly where he was meant to be with these two souls who had, in their own quiet way, changed everything for him. As the evening turned to night, Samuel stood up, extending his hand to both Adam and Lily. "Come on," he said, his voice steady but filled with warmth.
"Let's go inside. Dinner's waiting."
The three of them walked into the house, their steps light, their hearts full.
Samuel knew that whatever the future held, they would face it together, as a family.
And just as they stepped through the door, a deep sense of satisfaction settled within him, the feeling of having found something invaluable, something money could never buy. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this heartwarming story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more emotional journeys like this one.